Thank you for another episode of the Family Office Real Estate Institute. Today we have a little bit different topic, which has to do with professional sports and real estate. We know that a lot of teams have done some great things around the stadiums. You know, some to name a few would be the Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field, and there's many others as well. Today I have Justin Papadakis from the USL Soccer, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing and how that real estate comes in play, because there's a lot of very wealthy families too that are investors that are, I'm sure, part of some of that. So Justin, can you tell me a little bit about you guys, what you guys do, and how that relates to real estate?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on to talk about soccer. It's the topic, as you said, there's a significant dovetail between family offices on the real estate side and family offices as sports now is increasingly has its own, increasing mainstream asset class. And so the approach the USL has had that's been different is that as a league, we have a large real estate group. And we go out and work with our city, county, and state partners over 2, 5, 7 years to put together these stadium anchored developments. And so the result of that is after, years and almost a decade now of working on that, we have this very significant pipeline that will continue, is why we're the largest stadium builder in terms of a league in the world. Is that we have this different approach, and from a real estate asset class, we're very bullish on these live entertainment districts as a class that's going to really outperform over the next 20 years.
So you were mentioning before that like with some professional sports teams, it's really just their around their own stadium, etc. So is this more of a organizational effort to really create these areas?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the differences with USL is we're doing a lot of expansion franchises because the sport is a lot younger than minor league baseball and other leagues. And so over the next 5 years, we're going to add another 40 to 50 new markets. And so the way that we thought that we could most effectively do that is, and your audience will surely know what I'm talking about. These projects are very hard and they're very time consuming. And so what we thought we could do is we'll spend 2 years, 4 years, 10 years going through the entitlement process, assembling the land, going through all the traffic studies. We'll do all of that part. And then we'll come out on the other side with entitled projects that have financing structures in place. And so then we go engage, your audience, that we can come to the table with amazing real estate that has an anchor, attached to it. That is typically, we get as sports, we're very fortunate to get a lot of the incentive packages because cities really value bringing professional sports to their market. So then we can engage with your audience and say, we can deliver on a silver platter almost an entitled project. And so that's, I think, why we've had so much success and why we've had so much interest and investment from family offices like your audience is in the asset class, because we're mixing their traditional asset of real estate with professional sports. And so again, I think that's why we've had so much success, because we've taken out the real hard and time consuming part of the equation with the entitlement, land assembly, and financing.
Okay, so let me get this right. So if I were to go and I wanted to buy one of the expansion teams, that comes with the real estate, or is the real estate separate from purchasing the teams?
So every project's a little bit different, but ideally for us, it's great to have synergistic ownership between the team and the development. At the beginning, you mentioned the Wrigleyville project.
Yeah.
And so, like many other, which we can talk about, the Battery and several other that's happened across the country. The reason that districts are so important is that, for example, you might want to bring a concert, right? And the concert might just be a break even proposition on a four-wall basis within the stadium. But if that brings 10,000 people that are eating and shopping and staying in the hotels in the district, that will probably be a reason to do that concert, even though it's only break even at the at on the four wall basis. And so when you have common ownership among the stadium and the district, it makes the calculus very easy, which is very distinct from, and again, the Wrigleyville project had this, where if you have a totally bifurcated ownership group, it's hard, you kind of have the tragedy of the commons dynamic. And so that's where I think districts are becoming so much more successful because you have an integrated marketing approach to bringing people to the district.
Okay, so instead of, because the traditional structure, to me anyway, seems to be you have the team, and then you start looking around the area to say, what could we do to improve this, to enhance this? How could we, make it better? Where you're really going the opposite way. You're saying, hey, let's put together everything so that we can create that environment, have all those um, approvals in place where that stadium is going to be, so that we don't have any restrictions, and we already know what this is going to look like at the end. Is that right?
You're exactly right. And again, that's where I think we've come at this opportunity in a very different way is, we have a lot of conversations with family office folks that well. And so we try to get from an entitlement perspective. We obviously need to be able to run soccer games, but it's a lot more important than that, right? So when we do our entitlement process, we want to make sure that we can have concerts, we can have festivals, we can have all of these things. And then in addition to, height restrictions and, all sorts of other things that really bring value to our real estate development partners. And so when we have that knowledge going in, we can go as the 2 to 4 to 7 years that we're going through the process to bring the project to life. We can make sure that we have those in place, and so that when your audience comes into the equation, those things are largely set in place. And that's how we can bring so much value to the asset, which is here a district and a professional team. And I think again, that's why we've had a lot of success.
Well, I'll tell you. So I'm in Denver, and we have Coors Field, and the owners plus the Colorado Rockies build a nice little area right next to the stadium. However, there's a couple years back we were looking at see what we could do similar to a Wrigleyville, and of course that would take assemblage, right? Well, almost all of the properties were individually owned, and the ability to assemble blocks would be very, very difficult to do. So what you're saying, just to me, actually, anyway, really resonates because you're being proactive about this. How long have you been working on this strategy?
So we've been working on it. It was my dad's original idea back in 2008 when we purchased the league, and then I came over in 2015 of January. So it's been almost a decade now in the works. And what you just mentioned about Denver is exactly right. So stadiums used to get built on an island of parking lots, right? And a lot of times they were kind of or plugged right down into downtown. And so the thought of having districts around it wasn't really a concept. And so exactly what you said, what's happening now is you're trying to go assemble all of that land, afterwards, and that is extremely difficult.
Mhm.
So what we're doing, we're trying to do that all on the front end. And in addition to assembling the land, again, equally as important as your audience knows well, is all the entitlements to make sure that in zoning to make sure that we can have the district that we want. And so but these projects do take a long time. We have the benefit now of a decade in the market. And what we really try to do is really create relationships with our city, county, and state partners. That happens naturally because we work with them for 2 years, 4 years, 10 years. But then in parallel, we're also building stakeholder support. So that's the soccer community, the business community, the philanthropic community, so that this isn't just a development. We also, in parallel, are building community support. We call our stadiums not stadiums, we call them our community living rooms. And because it's really the one place that we can bring everyone together. And again, soccer is our main business, but we really think about having these stadiums be multi-purpose. And so whether it's graduations or high school football state championships or concerts or festivals, we really want this stadium to be activated as many days of the year as possible, because that's good for the stadium, it's good for business, but it's also great for the district, because then you have the foot traffic, which is great for the city and our city partners, because that's generating lots of sales tax and other taxable income, which is makes for a win-win situation for our city partners and for our investors.
Have you guys done any work in any opportunity zones?
We have so we have several projects. We just opened one up in Rhode Island this year. And so the opportunity zone program is really conducive for real estate, and it's really conducive for sports teams, which have a lot of their value created. And what we're really proud of is now USL has a very strong track record of asset appreciation growth. And so that's where a lot of our owners are real estate investors, because this combines, what they're very good at is developing real estate, developing places that people want to be, with having that anchor that's just supporting the project. The Opportunity Zone program, which is great that just got extended, is just really turbo boosts this effort. And again, is just so conducive to sports. And why, again, I think now that we had the program extension, it's going to be, another, massive opportunity for our investors. And again, I think very importantly, it's a massive opportunity for our city partners, right? Because this program was designed to incentivize investment into certain areas. And the magic of a sports team within the context of this program is that it takes a B property up to an A property. And so just give you guys an example of how we started this. My dad and I were at LA Live back in 2008 when that property opened. And that was really the seminal stadium anchored district project. And even in an amazing market like LA, it still needed some catalyst to get going. And as a lot of your audience knows, there's like this chicken the egg problem. You need people, to have bars and restaurants. You need bars and restaurants to have people. And so what a stadium does is it breaks that and creates a catalyst. The day that a stadium is announced, the surrounding real estate becomes significantly more valuable. And when we have, as you pointed out, we already have the land around it assembled and entitled. That's where, again, our investors are really rewarded. And again, our city partners, and why they're so excited about this opportunity is that your investors can invest their money anywhere. And they're choosing to invest their money into the cities that we partner with, because they see the value of the stadium anchored project and of the professional sports asset that it contains.
Just to touch on the opportunity zone here really quick, but not only, a lot of people don't realize that you can also there's tremendous benefits in an opportunity zone when you have a business that you establish or running, and this combines real estate in the OZ area. Plus, I would imagine that the ownership team would have their business of the soccer league or soccer team in that OZ. So that's sort of like a double benefit there, especially if they're holding on to it for a while and they're going to sell it, right? That is, one of the things that this brings to me too is sort of like when there's a golf course that's put in to a housing development, right? It's an extra amenity type of a thing. This isn't so much of an amenity as it is. I mean, it's all together. So tell me a little bit about what type of, I know you have a couple different leagues, right? So what type of, is this for the main professional soccer, or what is this? Or the minor leagues per se?
It's a great question, and I'll agree with you 100% on the analogy with a golf course. I think that's a very applicable analogy to put in. In regard to your question about the leagues, so our strategy when we bought the USL back in 08, which it had a league, but it was very small back then. Teams, just for context, teams were about $50,000. And now teams are selling for over $120 million. Okay, so the league was very small back then. The strategy we had was to break out of the major minor league construct that existed in American sports. So you have Major League Baseball and minor league baseball, right?
Yep.
For your audience that is unfamiliar with the soccer landscape, the Premier League in England is viewed generally as the top league in the world, just because it's the richest league. But you also have the German league, the Spanish league, the Italian league, and 37 other Division One, leagues, because you have countries in Europe that also have leagues. Those leagues aren't viewed as minor leagues to the Premier League; they're just other leagues. The best analogy,
similar to Wrexham. I think Wrexham is a great example of showing how there's different levels and different leagues, right?
exactly, and that's within the same country. And so I'll get to the promotion relegation side in a second, which is critically important. So we said, well, what if we frame it as like the SEC and the Big Ten, right? Like, so those aren't, one's not above the other; they just are kind of coexist. And so that was the strategy. Just to show you where we are in that journey, last year our championship game in Colorado Springs, close to where you are, a smaller media market, we were at CBS. We were on CBS at 12 o'clock. The MLS, the major league, traditionally, was on Fox at 4 o'clock, and they had New York versus LA, the two largest media markets, and we outrated their final, right? So that minor league baseball isn't on network television, but if they were, certainly, they would. No one would really think that they could ever even come close to outrating the World Series, right? So just some points of context. So what we want to do is, and so that's where we are today. where we're going tomorrow is exactly what you said about Wrexham. So we're going to be implementing promotion relegation. And so American fans have really seen the power of that through Wrexham, right? Where if you win, you go up. And why we think this is critically important from a fan perspective is that, and this ties back to our real estate discussion, we want to bring people to the district as much as possible, right? And so in the American sports construct, halfway through the season, for example, you have the top half of the table that is in playoff contention, right? So that's good. And then you have the bottom half that is not. And so maybe you hope kind of perversely that they lose because then you get a higher draft pick, but that's not a reason to come to the game, so to speak. And so with promotion relegation, the easiest way to understand it is you have a playoff at the top and a playoff at the bottom. And what that does is it creates a lot of interest and intrigue into the match. And I think the other great parallel, and Wrexham is a good analogy, is that like a lot of your, audience, might probably doesn't watch the University of Houston college basketball team on the regular. But in the case of March Madness, they do, because there's a lot of consequence to every game has consequence. And so that's what we're trying to, kind of inject into the construct of USL, is that every game has a consequence, whether it's to go up if you win or to go down if you lose. And so what's exciting for us, as I mentioned, is we've shown to date, and that's before a lot of our new teams come online, that we can be at parity with the MLS, the major league. And their media deal, just for context, is $200 million a year, right? And so if we are already at that point of parity, imagine what we can do if we can inject that consequence into the match. And because that's what sports ultimately about, right? It's about your community, something you care about, whether it's your university or your city. But then it's also the jeopardy that is inherent in sports. And I think we're going to be able to marry those two together. And the reason that this opportunity, I think, uniquely exists in soccer is that, unlike the NFL, NBA, NHL, where those leagues are the best in the world by, 1,000 miles, the MLS, isn't arguably in the top 10 leagues in the world. And so we think the American fan really wants to support their local team, the local USL team, for example. And then they might have a second favorite team, Manchester United, Barcelona, etc. And so that's what creates this awesome dynamic, which, again, just to bring it back to real estate, that enables us to drive fan interest into our districts, which makes the apartments worth more, which makes more people stay at the hotels, which makes more people come to eat and drink at the restaurants, which enhances the value of all of that ancillary development, which also enhances the value of our USL club, which then creates a great investment for our investor partners.
So so let's say a developer wants to take advantage of this strategy, which is excellent, by the way. Do they is the team, is like you only can get the real estate if you have the team, or can you have the team without the real estate, or you need both?
You can have every market's a little bit different, but the best thing we've used to talk to myself or my team, and then we can show different options. We do have some of our teen investors that don't want to be real estate investors, or they might have a large real estate portfolio, right? So when they look at their allocations, this sports are kind of in the alternative space, and they have, X millions of dollars that they want to put an allocation because they want exposure to professional sports. And then some might not, they already have their real estate allocation. So we can do it either way. And then sometimes, we want, on the real estate side of the business, we want best in class, developers and operators in the real estate space. And so, we do more master planning, but we want to bring in the best partners, whether it's a team operator or an apartment operator or hotel operator or investor. We want to bring together great people, because great people produce great businesses, and great businesses are successful, whether it's on the field or in the development. And so that's what we try to do.
So in the minor leagues, there's typically affiliation with one of the major league teams. Is that the case with your teams, or are they totally independent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I don't want to get too far down into the soccer business, but what's unique about soccer is that you don't trade players, right? You trade this player to this team, and then they send, player B back to you. In soccer, you transfer players, which means you sell players. And so it's one of, around the world, there's tens of billions of dollars a year in player transfers. Okay. And so that's why you don't want to be an affiliate of another team, because that means you don't own the players, which means you don't own one of the largest assets that the team has. And so there's other reasons that soccer, like, we want our players, in the minor league baseball context, just like, again, as what most people are familiar with, those players are there for a couple weeks, a couple months, and then they're moving around, right? And then at a minor league baseball game, it's not that they're not trying to win, but winning isn't the ultimate, goal of the games. They're there to develop players, which means the pitcher might be starting because he needs to recover from injury, not because he's at that second the best pitcher on the team. Again, that's a general statement, but that is inherently true. And so that's where, if you go to a soccer game, and we'd love your audience, if they haven't been to a game, call us up, and we'll would love to have them go to a game. The atmosphere, the soundtrack to a soccer game is very, very different. Our fans are there to win a game, period, right? And so the electricity, the excitement, the energy of our fans is geared around that. Which, again, just to kind of always tie it back to real estate, it's very important, because in baseball, just as an analogy, those games are 3 hours or 6 hours, and there's 8 stoppages or more of play, which means a lot of the consumption happens inside the stadium. Baseball their average age is also 20 years plus older than us, than USL, the fan. And so fans, they'll go to the game, they'll eat in the game, and then they go home. Soccer fans is very different. Soccer fans come out before the game, which means they're eating in the bars and restaurants. They go to the game, and then they go out after the game, which means the bars and restaurants are then getting, business as well. Additionally, because soccer fans are younger, they want to buy apartments that they're in entertainment districts, right? Mm-hmm. And so the apartments, you can see Colorado Springs, and many other projects around the country. Those average rents are significantly higher than the market, because there's lots of apartments available in every city, but there's only typically one project that has apartments overlooking a stadium, and that's in an entertainment, few that are in entertainment districts. And so you get a premium on your rents, you get a premium on your hotel. And so that's what makes the underlying real estate so much more valuable, because you have a differentiated product to the larger market, and the sport is just naturally conducive to supporting, which is important for the bars and restaurants. It's great that they come, but if they're not coming and spending money, within the bars and restaurants, it's it's not as valuable. And so that's why our bars and restaurants will pay a premium to be in our districts. And that's why the apartments, the hotels, et cetera, which again just drive up the value of the underlying real estate.
I go back to, I mentioned Wrexham before, but that's the same structure they have, right? They own their players and they're not affiliated with any major team, right? So it's the same thing with that. I'll tell you what else is that, if nobody's watched that program, I think it's pretty great. But what it also shows is how the community just really gets behind that team, right? And it creates an energy and atmosphere. And but I don't think they have necessarily the type of infrastructure you're talking about, in like where Wrexham is. I mean, I'm not sure, but it's its own little I don't know, organism, right? Where everything is as a total whole. So do these players have opportunities to sort of move up into the higher rankings? If their aspiration eventually is to get to the, major league soccer.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So one, and this is a little semantics, but I think it's important. Every club in the USL has the opportunity through promotion relegation to go up to Division One, which is the major league, right? And so within the USL ecosystem, so we're in a couple of years we're gonna have a Division One that's the same level as the MLS. And then currently, right now, we have the USL Super League, which is major league for women as well. And so, but to your question is exactly right. Players, naturally, they want to go to the league with the highest payrolls, right? And so
The highest level of play. I mean, it's
the
the
highest level, yeah, which
the best.
correlation, highest payrolls, highest level of play,
Yeah.
right? Good correlation there. In soccer, that isn't the MLS. In soccer, that's Europe because Europe's salaries are,
Okay.
multiples of what they are in the USL, multiples of what they are in the MLS. And so that's critical because we really position ourselves with players, parents, their agents, and with clubs in Europe that we want to be a selling league. And so, as a young player in the United States, the best pathway for you to get to England or Germany or France is to go play in the USL, it's called in soccer parlance, first team minutes, professional minutes. And because you have to get a certain amount of minutes to be on the radar of teams in Europe, right? Because what you do in practice is kind of what you do in practice. They want to see you in a professional context. And so that's where, and again, just points of context, just for your audience. 3 years ago, the highest player sale, which is called a transfer, was like $10,000, right? Now we have multiple $1 million transfers, right? So the value of European generally, this also applies to Mexico and other places, but largely players go to Europe. The the European teams are looking at the American player now in a very different way. I think anyone in the world would say that the American athletes are among the best in the world. The problem historically has been we haven't developed them right to be professional soccer players. Youth soccer, for your audience that have kids, historically, we've developed soccer players in the United States to go to college. And that's a very different development methodology than to be professionals. And so now, again, we're going to a little bit soccer world here, but now if you are a top level 14, 15, 16-year-old in a market of USL, you would be playing not against other 14, 15, or 16-year-olds, and then every couple of months go to a tournament and play against other 14-year-olds from around the United States. You'll be playing on the professional team in practice. And as you get a little bit older, 15, 16, maybe start getting first team minutes, and you can sign what's called an academy contract, which maintains your college eligibility, but you can play on a pro team. This is one of the soccer's biggest, I think, advantages we have. It's unlike, every other sport where if you're a great 15-year-old, you can't go play for the Braves, right? Like you would have to go to the minor leagues, which might also get you up there. But in all those other sports, the top level and sometimes the only level is the United States, essentially, right? And so there's this world market for players. And so now that we're developing players to be sold, our our athletes are the best in the world, I think. Now that we're developing them properly, the Europeans, which is validating this, now we're spending millions of dollars buying players out of the USL. And so that's going to go from hundreds of thousands to 1 million to tens of millions. Players get sold for hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so we are on that trajectory. It's going to be another 5 to 7 years before we get to the tens of millions of dollars, I think. But we have the athletes here. We're developing them right for being professionals, and players want to play because we have great stadiums with great entertainment districts and great coaching, and you get to live in great cities around the United States. So as a player, you have the whole package here, and we're going to put you on the pathway to go to Europe.
You bring up something that's my first thought, and I bet you a lot of people's thought, is that the pinnacle is the MLS. It's not. It's just like you said, Europe. And unless I'm wrong, things that I've heard in the past, it sounds like, that's what you're talking about, and sort of preparing for the professional future is what Europe's been doing for a long time, right? They've been sort of utilizing that, which is one reason why I think they've just really built up such a following. Of course, it's been around there longer, but I'll tell you, I think that the strategy of not just the USL, which I think is fantastic from what you're talking about, but how that connects with real estate is, something that probably not a lot of people know about. That is just a fantastic opportunity, because when you're doing a master plan community, you want to make sure that you're getting the people, and this is helping them draw those people in, right, to that area. I'll tell you,
exactly right.
Well, Justin, I could go on for more and more questions, so we might have to extend this a little bit. Usually I don't usually ask this, but I definitely want to do this with you. Where can people get more information? Because this is what you've put together is excellent. So where could people get more information about what you guys are doing and the opportunity in general?
Yeah, so I mean, on LinkedIn, Instagram, my email, justin.papadakis@uslsoccer.com. We don't typically give that out, but again, your audience is one that we work a lot of with your counterparts. Family offices, just say I have a special, I mean, we're also different USL because my family owns a league, and so we operate in a family office type of environment as well. And so we want to work with investors that don't view these projects like we're not selling yachts, that just are fun toys. We want investable assets that have this amazing synergy between real estate and sports. And now that sports is I think most people viewed it as a real alternative asset class that, has a history of outperforming the market, uncorrelated to the market. And when you wrap that, especially with programs like the OZ program, I'm a little biased, but I think there's no better synergy between sports and real estate, because it's a flywheel that spins the other. And so your audience knows the real estate side so well. And this is a case that, I used to develop shopping centers. I wish, cities rolled out, the red carpet like they do for sports teams, right? It doesn't exist. But sports has this superpower in that we bring so much value to our city partners, and we create such great relationships with them because we bring so much value to them. Again, this isn't just because they're nice or because they like soccer. This is because they see the power that soccer can bring to their community and can bring to them economically through these developments, that they really do everything in their power to create a condition for bringing investments, because your audience, again, they can invest their money anywhere. And so where we want to bring the opportunity is what we tell our city partners is we need to have the conditions to attract that investment. And so because now we have a great track record, so many investors, they believe in that strategy of real estate plus sports. And now we're very fortunate that we have 70 opportunities across the country over the next couple of years for your investors to deploy their capital in, and skip over the kind of brain damage part, which is assembling the land and doing all of that work over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's the biggest. That's the hardest thing to do, right? Is to make sure that you're assembling and everything. Justin, I'm going to have you keep on here afterward, just so that you and I can finish up here. But Justin Papadakis with the USL, thank you so much for being on the show, and probably have to have you back. Especially, I just see so much synergy with that opportunity zone, and it was there created initially to really enhance an area, and this by all means, could do it. And you've done a great job of packaging everything up. So we'll be in touch from that. But thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll continue this conversation a little bit in the future.